All right, welcome everybody to the Legacy of the Void campaign panel, where we hope to answer all your burning questions about the in-development final chapter of the StarCraft II trilogy. My name is James Waugh. I'm the lead writer, and I'm joined on stage by Jason Huck, lead level designer, Alan Dilling, lead artist, Justin Tavarat, lead artist, and Matthew Morris, lead campaign designer, each of whom will talk about how their discipline helped craft the game. So, with the core gameplay for StarCraft II established already in the last two titles, the development of Legacy of the Void started with the story. Now that doesn't mean that, as the writer, I went to some cabin in the woods somewhere with a vintage typewriter and pecked out a manuscript that we'd go build a game from. Instead, like everything we do at Blizzard, our story development process was highly collaborative. And for several months, Chris Metzen, myself, Dustin Browder, Sam Didier, and these guys worked closely to craft a compelling story that would also make great gameplay. And so right from the start, we wanted to set out a few core tenets that would help guide us along the way. These were, we wanted to create a distinctly Protoss story while wrapping up the trilogy story threads. We wanted this game to be about what it means to be Protoss, and its core fictional conceits would be built around their deep lore and themes. So even though this is the conclusion of a trilogy, with a lot of storylines to wrap up, we wanted to make sure that we kept our camera focused squarely on the Protoss, on their hopes, on their struggles, and their desire to reclaim their lost homeworld. Next, we wanted to make sure that with this game, we created an epic end-time scenario for the players to stand against. We've talked about the coming of Amon and the threat of galactic destruction for 2 games now. It's time we paid off on that promise. More importantly, it's time we created a scenario that the players, you, could stand against. And maybe most important of all these three, we wanted to make sure that this game fulfilled the fantasy of playing Protoss. And so every single storyline and mission choice was filtered through that lens. So who are the Protoss? And what is that fantasy you're going to be hearing so much about today? We boiled down several key traits that really defined them. These were, they're an ancient and noble race, the Kala, high tech, small numbers. The Protoss are an ancient psionic species, so old they consider themselves the firstborn in the universe. Their empire once reached across the Kaprulu sector and stood at the height of evolutionary achievement. But notice we say noble race, because in many ways at Blizzard we look at the Protoss as our space samurai or space paladins. They're a species with a deep sense of honor and a strict code of justice, right and wrong, and a responsibility to enforce them. This idea of nobility deeply impacted how we looked at the Protoss as we were developing the story. And as you'll see from these guys, how they developed gameplay and art. The Kala. You really can't talk about Protoss fiction without talking about the Kala. The Kala is a sacred and mystical energy field that unifies the Protoss' every thought and emotion. It's the thing that their civilization is built upon. In the past, the Kalas allowed us to play with themes like collectivism versus individuality and trying to find a balance between the two. And those themes will certainly surface once again in this game. High tech. If you've played as Protoss or you've played against Protoss, you know just how devastating a Colossus or Mothership assault can be. Being an ancient race has its advantages and has allowed plenty of time for the Protoss to create incredible weapons of war. We wanted to make sure that that high tech and those incredible war machines were featured as prominently as possible throughout this game. And finally, small numbers. Protoss civilization has thinned in population due to eons of war and sacrifice. So unlike the Zerg, who seem infinite in number, each Protoss warrior is a rare and precious army of one. This is a story about a small band of Protoss warriors who dare to stand against seemingly limitless numbers. And nothing felt more like playing Protoss to us than that. So over the last 2 games, we really focused on the Terran and Zerg storylines, ultimately building to Kerrigan's revenge with the fall of Arcturus Mengsk. The Protoss have made appearances, but they haven't been front and center. But what the Protoss have been up to is critical to understanding where this game is going. So allow me to give a brief recap. If you recall, at the end of StarCraft I, the Protoss homeworld of Aiur fell to the Zerg, and the proud Templar were forced to become refugees living amongst their Dark Templar brethren. The Dark Templar were once outcasts, banished for their refusal to join the Khala and their ritualistic severing of their nerve cords, and their deep belief in their individuality. But in this brave new world, both Protoss factions have come together, trying to form a new unified civilization called the Dalam on the Dark Templar world of Shakuras. But as you might imagine, with 2 cultures built on such fundamentally different principles, old tensions began to surface, and the unity they were hoping to achieve became increasingly difficult. And that's where Artanis comes in. If you remember, Artanis was the Protoss hero from Brood War. He's also the hero of our game. Artanis has recently been named Hierarch of the Dalam, the de facto leader of the unified Protoss factions, and it has become his responsibility to find a way to make this new Protoss society work together. And right before the start of this game, Artanis has found that way. He has found the one thing that all Protoss can rally behind, and that's the reclamation of their fallen homeworld of Aiur. And so, he sets out to build the Golden Armada, the greatest fleet of Protoss vessels ever constructed, and he leads a mission of reclamation to Aiur to try to build a new Protoss civilization from the rubble of the old. And that's how our game starts. But I've been talking about Protoss for a while now, and Protoss characters, and I feel I'm missing someone who's very important to the Protoss story. What? Zeratul? All right. That's right. Zeratul, the Dark Templar, the mystical Dark Templar who's been showing up in our last 2 games, raving about end times prophecies and the return of an ancient evil known as Amon. Don't worry, guys. Zeratul will definitely feature prominently in this game too. And he'll return with a similar prophecy for Artanis. Because all this time, Zeratul's been right. Amon, the fallen Xel'Naga, has returned, hell-bent on setting the galaxy ablaze and remaking it as he sees fit, bringing about the culmination of a plan he put into motion millions of years ago. This game is the story of what happens when that plan collides with Artanis' return to Aiur. And so after starting off with an epic D-Day invasion, with the full might of the Golden Armada bearing down on the Zerg, Amon makes his presence known and corrupts the Protoss, the thing that defines their culture the most, the Khala. From there, he launches his galactic assault and unleashes legions of hybrid, revealing their true purpose. Artanis and a small band of Protoss followers have to do the unthinkable and sever their nerve cords, thereby disconnecting themselves from the Khala's light. From there, they flee aboard an ancient but powerful arc vessel known as the Spear of Adun. You will play as Artanis on his journey to save his people, build a new Protoss society without the Khala, unite Protoss factions like the Tel Darim, Nerazim, Purifiers into the Dalam, and ultimately retake your homeworld. This is a campaign that will force the Protoss to change everything they know in order to preserve their civilization and defeat an ancient evil. I couldn't be more happy with how this story is shaping up and how these guys have turned it into incredible gameplay and art. And so with that, I leave you with the capable hands of Mr. Jason Huck, lead level designer.
Thanks everyone for being here. We're really excited to have you and hope you're enjoying your time. So, our goal for Legacy of the Void is not only come up with brand new and awesome mission mechanics for the player to experience, but it's also to capture the essence of playing as the Protoss. And much like the samurai of ancient history, the Protoss live by a code of honor. And they have a strong sense of justice and strive for glory in battle. And over the course of this game, the player will take this mighty race across the galaxy, righting wrongs and smiting Amon's evil where it's found. So after Ire, Artanis makes a choice to go to Core Hall. Now, unfortunately, the Terrans here are under assault by a new force, a new enemy force, a group called the Shadow Corps. Now, this was not at all what Artanis had hoped for, and they had hoped to come to Core Hall at the behest of Zeratul. And unfortunately, with this new force here assaulting the Terrans, it looks like that the Protoss will be the ones offering their assistance. So this first mission here is called Sky Shield, and it takes place on a space platform that's plummeting to the surface of Core Hall. It's been taken over by this group. And this cinematic here sort of shows the introductory sequence, and it reflects sort of the actions and situations that the Protoss will have to deal with throughout this game.
Last much longer. At this rate, we've got maybe 10 minutes left till it lands smack dab on our capital.
Your suspicions were correct, Commander. Shadow Corps is disabling the platform's atmospheric stabilizers as we speak. The damage appears repairable, Hierarch.
Yeah, assuming Shadow Corps leaves anything left to repair. Artanis, if you can clear out those troops, my boys can patch up those stabilizers. That should buy us some extra time.
We must move quickly. It will take the combined power of all 5 stabilizers to halt the platform's descent.
So this mission's playable here at BlizzCon, and if you haven't had a chance to get over there and play it, I'd love for you to be able to do so. For those of you also at home that are watching this video, I'd like to go over a quick recap of what the player has to do on this map. So, again, the goal for the Protoss here is to re-secure this space platform for the Terrans. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a timer that shows how long they have to do so before it crashes into the surface of the planet. Now, in order to re-secure and stabilize this, the Protoss will have to go around and take back these locations that have been taken over by the Shadow Corps. And once they've done that, Raynor's forces will come down and repair these platform stabilizers. And then that buys the player more time to just do it again. And after doing this a number of times, they secure the platform and save the day. So coming up with new mission mechanics for Legacy of the Void has been a wonderful challenge for us. With Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, we challenged you with walls of fire that chased you across the map, with freezing flash storms that froze your enemies, and with day-night zombie apocalypse-like mission. And with Legacy of the Void, we finally were able to fulfill a fantasy of a mission what we were never able to before, and that is, what if we could let the player move their base? And I don't mean like the Terrans do, like when they pick up their structures and fly them across the map, but what if you could literally just drive your base across the map? And we call this mission Unleashed. So this mission here takes place late in the game when the Protoss have unlocked their mightiest of technologies. They're looking for the Shadow Corps' homeworld. Now they've come here, they found their location of their secret base, and they've come prepped for war. So you can see here, the map's kind of low on minerals and gas. So as the player runs out, they'll use the interface in the upper right to move it to another part of the map. And then as they get here, they'll continue to harvest. And they'll need to do this many times throughout this mission because the whole map is just very low on resources. So this is just another shot showing a larger area of the map where you would drive this platform around. So that's it for me. Alan Dilling's up next, and he's going to show a lot of the locations and environments and planets you get to experience in the game.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Dilling. I'm a lead artist on StarCraft II, Legacy of the... Legacy of the Void. And today we're going to show you some awesome campaign art. Now, Jason has talked about some of our cool mechanics we have. And our job on the art team is to go through and take those awesome designs, those great locations, those really cool scenarios, and bring them to life. We have a lot of passionate, dedicated artists who pour their heart and soul into making it the most immersive, dynamic, and just epic, badass experience for you guys. There's also a lot of new artists on the team, and I think they've done an amazing job raising the bar even higher than in Heart of the Swarm. So first we're going to start off with an old favorite, Ire. This is the homeworld of the Protoss. It's the first mission of the game, and the Zerg have taken this place over about 5 years ago. Your job is to take this massive army, you warp in outside the city, and you pummel the troops into the city. The one thing you'll see here is an environment we've never shown before, which is a Protoss city. So we try to figure out, what does that mean? How does it compare to a contemporary Terran or human city? Are there skyscrapers? Are there park benches? Are there subway systems? We've tried to take a lot of the elegant architecture, the curvature, and the high-tech nature that you see in the multiplayer units and structures, and really add it to the city to show once how epic it was. Also, you'll notice that it's completely creeped over and destroyed at this point. We spent a lot of time trying to sell that whole D-Day invasion, Saving Private Ryan moment, with lots of explosions, buildings crumbling, units crashing into the ground, scripted events. And I think it's a great way to start off the campaign with a bang. Next, a few missions later, also on Ire, is a more traditional tile set. This is the ancient temple grounds. So we've shown this one before in the past, but never in this amount of detail. We've gone through and added weather effects. There's brand new textures for everything. There's vines growing everywhere. We actually have new technology for the terrain textures that allow it to render much more realistically. And one thing you'll notice in a lot of these maps are we've custom-made ramps and stairs for almost every environment. And it's way more interesting and just dynamic than we had in the past. This mission here has you fighting the Zerg in the temple environment to go activate 3 awesome-looking generators, and which in turn activates something really cool I can't show you guys today. Next, we have Core Hall. This is the mission that's playable on the show floor, and it's the one that Jason just talked about. Once again, you're in an orbital space platform plummeting down to the surface of Core Hall. Your job is to warp in, turn back on the generators, and stop this from falling. We had a lot of fun with this one. We tried to really sell that dynamic, tense moments of it falling to the sky. We have re-entry fire on the edges, the light changes, and it's pretty dynamic. As you slow it down and take out or turn on each generator, the fire actually goes down, the lights change, and everything goes back to normal. One of the funnest things about this map is that as you go through it, the place is ripping itself apart. Huge holes are tearing itself in the platform, debris is falling everywhere, it's just ripping itself apart constantly. Also, this is some of the largest Terran doodads we've ever made in the campaign. You notice a huge EMP generator, and up ahead here is a massive turbine system, big engines, and by far the largest missile launcher we've ever made in StarCraft. I think each missile is as big as a battlecruiser, basically. Now, directly below that, in the next mission, is the city of Augustgrad. We've shown it before, and this city has just been through hell. First, Kerrigan and her swarm, and Wings of Liberty, or Heart of the Swarm, and took it out to get to Manx. Now they start repairing it, as you can see here with the construction. And of course, Amon and his troops through the Shadow Corps start destroying it once again. So we had a lot of fun trying to figure out how we can amp it up to 11 this time. Like, how can we make this place even better, bigger, more detailed, tell more stories? There's a lot of fun things we did with this map. Also, we try to figure out ways we can really incorporate things you can relate to on a science fiction environment. In this case, we try to put a starport or like an airport in here, which eventually will be totally blown apart. Is there anything we can that we can make you relate to the map even more? It's just a bonus for us. Next, we have Shakuras. This is the homeworld of the Dark Templar. Once again, we've never shown these guys and what their cities look like. It's always been some kind of little outpost, it's some temples in the middle of the wastelands. So we try to figure out how we're going to make this work and how to make it different from the ones in Ire. You can tell, obviously, the color palette is much more cooler. There's some sharper edges, and there's more temple and kind of religious ceremonial elements spread throughout the city. And once again, as the central theme throughout the whole campaign, it's under attack. Amon's forces are pushing everybody to the brink. Zerg have it totally destroyed, and we had a lot of fun putting explosions. There's flat cannons going off, plasma shots in the air, a lot of scripted events. And the next mission is also on Shakuris. It's a more familiar temple arena. So this one, you're going through, and it's a giant Dark Templar temple, but in the center of it is a Xel'Naga temple. It's even larger. Again, huge, bold doodads are the theme of throughout StarCraft II, Legacy of the Void. This is actually a holdout map. You're trying to defend the center. And anytime we have a holdout map, we really try and focus fire all the art right in the center, because we know you don't have time to go look at the outskirts of the map. So eventually this one will have like lots of wind, lightning effects. The place will just be ripping itself apart, and literally thousands of Zerg will be coming up the lanes to try and get to you. Next we have Slain. This is the homeworld of the Tal'Darim. They're the faction of the Protoss that worship Amon and do his bidding. You'll notice more ceremonial things here, such as the sacrificial pit. The whole objective of this mission is to go through, confront their leader, and drive him back into this pit before he does the same thing to you. Now you notice it's a much more darker world, much more harsh environment, jagged edges and everything. It shares some architecture, but again, very harsh. It's survival of the fittest, and that kind of fits along with the whole Tal'Darim theme. Here we've tried to show some height and some depth in the map, and really trying to take it further than we have ever in StarCraft II. And finally, we have Cybros. This is the home space station for the Purifiers. They're actually an ancient robotic race made by the Protoss a long time ago and since forgotten. Artanis finds out about them, and you come here to reactivate them so they'll fight for your side. So you have to fight the Zerg in this map, and meanwhile you'll notice the architecture, while similar to some of the Protoss environments, they have a much different color palette. They're very cold, robotic. There's much more emissive and energy going on, a lot more robotic elements. And again, just large, massive doodads, a lot of interactive ones. And I think you guys are going to have a blast in this one. Once again, these are kind of a work in progress. By the time you guys see them in the final game, they're going to look even better. And I'm glad I got to share this with you guys today. Thanks. And I'm going to hand it over to Justin Tavrat.
How's it going, BlizzCon? All right. My name's Justin Tavrat, and I help out as one of the lead artists on StarCraft II, Legacy of the Void. And I work with the story art team, and our job is to help push the story forward by creating the cutscenes and the different conversations that you, the players, get to experience in between the different missions of the campaign. Now, if we're doing our job right, we really help creating the fantasy of what it's like to play as a Protoss by creating highly detailed, high-fidelity art assets that allow you to get up close and personal to the different characters and environments in the game. And we brought some of those characters and environments and cutscenes with us today, and we're really excited to share them with you now. This first cutscene we have here is what we call the Spear of Adun introduction. Now, the Spear of Adun is an ancient Protoss arc ship, and in this cutscene you'll see it fleeing from Ire. And on board you'll see Karax, a new Protoss character, introducing Artanis to the different functions and features on the Spear of Adun. So let's check it out.
Spear of Adun, a marvel of Kalai engineering, and last of the three great arc ships, each created to ensure the continuation of our culture in a dark time. Within its chambers rest contingents of zealots, Templar who bravely sacrificed, entering suspension so that they may serve as this vessel's army. Though it pains me greatly, I have begun severing their nerve cords. The ship's lower decks contain a star forge capable of constructing weapons of war. There is much to learn about this vessel. Its technology is ancient, yet highly advanced. We are aboard a relic from a glorious time when our culture shined as a constellation. The Celestial Array has been updated, Hierarch. From here, you may select our next point of travel. With this vessel, we will avenge what has transpired, Karax, and we will free the Templar.
So that's one of the, right on. That's one of the first cutscenes, the real-time cutscenes that the team back at Blizzard was created. And I think they did a fantastic job with that. And it really helps set the tone of what we have in store for you in Legacy of the Void. And it's going to be in cutscenes like these that you're going to meet a whole host of awesome characters, some familiar and some new. So the first one I have to share with you today is Artanis. Now this is obviously the character you play as in Legacy of the Void, and he's also the hierarch of the remaining Protoss race. Now if you look at his armor design, you'll notice it's got that traditional Protoss style. But instead, it's got more of a silver and white design to it that helps dignify him as the leader of the Protoss. And that silver armor combined with the impressively broad shoulder pads and the iconic backplate really helps show him off as the leader of the Protoss race. Next up, we have a familiar Dark Templar, Zeratul. This should be recognizable to anyone that's played StarCraft II. And he continues to go on about dark prophecies and warns and advises Artanis during the campaign of Void. And it's cool to see him up here because you get to see his striking contrast in character and costume design to Artanis. Is the Dark Templar, he's got more of the tattered robes, the ancient armor plates, and the severed nerve cords. This is Vorazun. She's a brand new female Dark Templar character, and she's the matriarch of the remaining Dark Templar on Shakuras. And eventually she joins Artanis' cause aboard the Spear of Adun to reunite the different Protoss tribes. Now when designing Zeratul, we wanted to draw some inspiration from traditional Persian motifs that you'll see there in the layered colored robes or the veil covering the face, and we combined them with more familiar Dark Templar motifs like the Zerg skeletal armor, the severed nerve cords, and the glowing green eyes. And together, I mean, she turns into a really awesome character. She has an awesome role in the story, and it's a really cool new spin on what a Dark Templar could look like. And this is Karax. Karax is a phase smith. So as a phase smith, he's basically an engineer aboard the Spear of Adun, monitoring the different systems on the Spear and advising Artanis on the different features and functions of the ship. Now you notice with his design, he's a little shorter and a little stockier. His armor's a little more functional instead of ceremonial. And where his nerve cords used to be, he's re-augmented them with these cybernetic tentacles that allow him to interact and manipulate the different technologies on the ship. And this is Rohana. She's a female Protoss preserver. And as a preserver, she retains the collective memory and intelligence of the Protoss race through the Kala. And she uses that intelligence and knowledge to advise Artanis throughout the campaign. Now you'll notice that her nerve cords are splayed out behind her, and they're harnessed in this mechanical, almost clock-like headdress that really symbolize how synchronized she is with the Kala. So synchronized and so in tune, she literally levitates off the ground. So in addition to these cool new characters, we also have tons of environments for you to check out in Legacy of the Void. One of the biggest, most impressive environments we've made is the actual Spear of Adun ship itself. It's an ancient arched ship, and we've created this short video here to help show it off to you today. Now this ship is massive, right? It contains the remaining Protoss civilization on board, along with entire armies of zealots, fleets of carriers, and even motherships. Now when designing the Spear of Adun, we wanted to create something that was very high concept and very Protoss. But at the same time, it's an ancient arc ship, so it had to have a historical element to it, something that felt archaic or ornamental, and fused those designs with traditional Protoss epic visual language. And in the end, I think we created something that was very worthy of the Protoss' final chapter in this game. Now, aboard the Spear of Adun, you're going to get to interact with different rooms, or what we call sets. And these sets have different functions aboard the ship. This first set that we have is called the War Council. And in the War Council, you'll talk to characters like Rohana, or come to manipulate or customize your Protoss army for the campaign. Now, when designing the War Council, we wanted something that was very dark, very foreboding, and it felt tonally appropriate to where Artanis would come to and wield the power of the Protoss army. And one of the coolest things about the War Council is that it will change over time. So as you progress through the campaign mission arcs and unlock new Protoss units, those units will start to populate and inhabit the background of the War Council. So for example, when you get to a point in the game where you unlock the Colossus will start to appear in the War Council. And you'll see other ambient units in the background there, like Void Rays, Zealots, Stalkers. And as you progress through the campaign, it really helps sell the fantasy of the Protoss amassing and building a powerful army. And eventually, you'll even get carriers flying out of the hangar of the War Council once you unlock them in the game. It really brings this environment, this set to life. So another set that we have is what we call the bridge. And the bridge is basically the command center of the Spear of Adun. Aboard the bridge, you'll interact with different characters like Karax, or interact with familiar Terran characters like James Raynor. Now, when designing the bridge, we wanted to create something that was very opened up to the space behind it, so you could really take in the grand vistas of the epic cosmos behind itself. The other thing that it helps with is it helps show you where you are in the different arcs of the campaign. So, for example, when you're on the mission on Core Hall assisting James Raynor on the surface, from the bridge you'll see Core Hall in the background and Raynor's fleet orbiting the ships. And one of the coolest pieces of technology that's on the bridge is that device in the middle there is what we call the Celestial Array. Now, Artanis will click on that to choose what mission arcs he wants to embark on or what missions he wants to engage. It's basically a piece of UI, but it's really cool, and it creates a 3D holographic representation of the galaxy, and it really helps sell the fantasy of what high-tech Protoss is all about.
Ire is lost once more. My great vision of reclamation left in ruins. The Nerazim of Shakuras ritually sever their connection to the Kala.
So that shows how, in that point in the campaign, Artanis gets to choose between going to Core Hall or Shakuras. And the last video I have for you guys today is a video of the Spear of Adun showing off the scale of the ship. So as you'll see here in this video, it starts off at the tail end by the engine, and it progresses up the side of the ship. And we want to show here is the relative scale of where the bridge sits inside the Spear of Adun. So as it comes up here, up to the front, that tiny spot is where the bridge is. And it really helps tell the fantasy of how massive this ship is. So the art team back at Blizzard is super excited for what we have in store for you. We can't wait for you guys to check it out. If you haven't already, please check out the demo. There's additional content over there that you can see for the first time. And that's what I have for you guys today. Thank you very much. Hand it over to Matt to talk about campaign design.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Morris, and I'm the lead campaign designer on StarCraft. Now, today I want to talk about a very important design value we have at Blizzard. We call it, what is the fantasy? And more importantly, I want to talk about how this design value really impacted army customization in all of StarCraft II. If you remember, the Terran fantasy was about building a bigger, stronger army by choosing missions to earn credits. That was the Terran fantasy. That was Terran army customization. The Zerg fantasy was about adapting to hostile environments, picking mutations and evolutions to become a more efficient killing race. That is the Zerg army customization. And when we started talking about Legacy of the Void, we asked ourselves, how do you make the most technologically advanced race in the universe more powerful? How are we going to customize these guys? What is their fantasy? If you remember what James had said about this game, this is about Artanis going out into the stars, finding these different Protoss factions, and uniting them so that they could stand together against Amon. So how does that translate into army customization? Well, when you play the game, you're going to encounter these various Protoss factions. Sometimes you'll encounter ancient technology, and when you encounter this ancient technology, or when these factions begin to follow Artanis' leadership, something different happens. In the past, These races, these tribes have worked really well side by side, but they've never worked as one. These Protoss factions are bringing over their most mightiest warriors, their most advanced technology, and they're going to give Artanis the tools that he could fight against Amon. And so how this works. Inside the War Council room, Artanis is going to make some executive decisions about his army. He's going to choose between 3 entirely different units based on the Protoss faction from which they came from. Now, not any one of these units is better than the other one, but what's different is how this enemy, or how this unit engages the enemy on the battlefield. So there are 3 different types of zealots, 3 different types of stalkers. Now, I have a video to kind of illustrate the differences of how these units engage the enemy. So this is the Ire Zealot. This is the guy you remembered since StarCraft I. He's a guy that you fought against in Heart of the Swarm. He's a powerful warrior, fearless, charges into battle. Let's see how this guy does against this new Terran threat.
Kassar!
Those guys didn't do so well. So here's the new Ire Zealot. This Zealot is actually going to replace the one you just saw. As you saw in the video, these Protoss warriors are coming out of stasis. And they're equipped with this ancient blade that they found on the Spear of Adun. Now this unit isn't necessarily better than the one you just saw, but because of this weapon that they're carrying now, they engage the enemy much differently. So let's take a look at how this new Ire Zealot handles that same situation.
Ulas!
That one turned out much different. So that's the Protoss fantasy. It's selecting these powerful warriors, this powerful technology from these various factions that you encounter. And this is how you're going to customize your army and form a new Protoss army. You're going to help Artanis form the Dalam so that you guys can stand together against Amon. Now I want to switch gears real quick, and I want to talk about how the Terran first introduced themselves in StarCraft. If you guys remember, there was a Terran colony called Chasara. The Terrans didn't even know about the Protoss yet. They just encountered the Zerg. So the Protoss hear about this, and they send a fleet to this planet, and they blast it from orbit. They kill everything and everyone on this planet. Now, this was an incredibly powerful moment in the game. It also shows how strong and powerful the Protoss are. And this is the kind of power that we wanted to give you guys a chance to play in the campaign. And so that's what we've done with the Spear of Adun. This ship is just not a ship that you launch missions, and it's not just a vessel to talk to the characters or customize your army. It is a weapon that you're going to get a chance to customize. And so how this works, inside the Spear of Adun is a room called the Solar Core. The Solar Core is like the heart and soul of the ship. Inside this room is a synthetic star. Now the synthetic star has been lying dormant for a very long time, so it doesn't have all the energy to power up the weapon systems and the defense systems. But Krax, your face smith, he'll be in here getting very familiar with the technology, and he'll start bringing these things online. But more importantly, this star still does not have enough energy. So when you start playing the missions, you're going to encounter secondary objectives, and these objectives are going to reward an energy resource so that you can get some more energy from this star. Now, I do have a video I want to show you of the very first time we introduced a weapon system in the game. This is something you guys could check out over at the demo floor. I hope you guys have checked it out. If not, plenty of time to go do it. Here's the video.
Shadow Core is moving against us. Karax, activate the Spear of Adun's weapons cluster.
Bombardment systems online. Prepare for orbital strike.
So this is how we expect the player to engage in this system. Now what you see before you is just a mock-up. I imagine that this screen will go through thousands of iterations before we actually get it to the end game. But it does explain a little bit what I'm trying to talk about today. So if you notice that we have the Spear of Adun at the top of the screen, this is something we felt very important to remind the player that you have this vessel in orbit supporting your troops on the battlefield. Now each of these columns represents a different weapon system or a defense system. And within each of these columns is different Spear of Adun abilities. Now, the more powerful the ability is, the more energy it requires from that star to have that system activated. One of the many interesting things about this system is that even if you were to do all the secondary objectives and have all maximum amount of energy coming from this star, you still will not be able to activate all the most powerful abilities. So as Artanis, it's up to you to figure out how you want to support your troops on the battlefield. Now I have one last video I want to show you. This is a taste of what we want to do for you guys as far as how much power we want to put into this system. Now this ability is called Time Stop because only the Protoss are advanced enough to suspend time for a short duration.
Ula Sadari.
So that's it for the Legacy of the Void campaign overview. Now, before we do get to questions, I have one last thing to show you guys. We've been working on a new game mode, and this is not campaign, and this is not PvP multiplayer, and this is not the Archon mode that Dustin Browder had talked about earlier in the open ceremony. This is a new game mode we're calling Allied Commanders. And what Allied Commanders is, it's an objective-based cooperative experience for you and your friend, where each of you get to pick a powerful commander from your favorite race. And you will unlock new units and new abilities with this commander in an open-end progression system versus the AI. Now, I really wish I had more things to show you with this, and I wish I had more details to talk about this. But I guarantee that in the future, we'll tell you more. Thank you. You guys light up if you have any questions.
Is the new Ire Zealot in multiplayer too?
No, unfortunately, he's not in multiplayer. Most of the units that we designed for single player is really designed for the experience that you have in single player, so we could talk to David Kim about it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You just saw how OP that was, I know.
Hi, I have a question. Will there ever be a co-op campaign mode?
Not specifically for the campaign that you've already known.
Hi, so I've seen the campaign, and one thing that came up to my mind was how the dialogue was a lot different from Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm. I thought it was a lot less cheesy, a lot more Protoss-y, a lot more like, I don't know what to say, it was a lot more badass, I guess. So what were some of the challenges in writing the dialogue, the script, to make it a lot more different than it used to be?
First off, thank you. You know, I think the thing is the Protoss are a really epic race, right? So getting a chance to write a dialogue for space samurais is a dream come true. So I wouldn't really say it's it was so challenging because it was really fun. I would say the only challenge that I had is that there's kind of this unknowable species, and so in everything we've done in the past, we've really had a human lens, right? So you get a point of view into who the Zerg are through a human, and we've done that in our books. You learn who the Protoss are through a human perspective, and so we didn't have that, and so that was an initial challenge, but aside from that, I was just excited to dive in and really get to tell a Protoss story. I've always been a Protoss player, and so this was an awesome opportunity for me. Thanks.
Hi. So, because only a few Protoss remain, will we see unit amount limits at least in the hardest difficulties?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Will we have like a defined number of zealots we can use in this mission or another mission, for example, and that amount is just like gone after you spawn all those units and they die?
No, that's kind of an interesting idea. We hadn't made any intentions to say there's a finite number of warriors, and once you burn through your warriors, most of the missions are always catered around either the unit or the story point, so we're always having the objectives go that way. We do have missions, what we call installation missions, where you do have a group of warriors that go into a kind of a squad-based system, and they are going to go take down whatever objective. So in that case, we have it, but not for the entire campaign.
Okay, I noticed there are some characters' information that are missing. So, can you give us any clue what happened to Testor?
Well, I think if you play this game, you might find out what happened to Tassadar.
Hello. First off, dig your Carhartt's t-shirt. Big fan of the art guy myself. You guys are talking a lot about the Protoss changes and the end of their stories, but there's a lot of threads held with such, like what happened to Nova, what happened to Kerrigan, and of course Raynor. Are we going to be seeing the end of this and the end of what was essentially started with StarCraft I, or is this going to be kind of a continuation story, and then we're going to have a final piece that's going to talk about everyone?
Well, I think, as one of the first points I said, we wanted to really not rob the Protoss players, make sure that they had a campaign that was theirs, right? But we're well aware that we have those really important story threads to wrap up, and we've been saying Kerrigan factors into the defeat of Amon since Wings of Liberty. And so that will happen. Jim's going to be featured. Sarah's going to be featured, and I think the whole cadre of people that we've invested in over the last 2 games will make an appearance.
All right. Hello. I just want to know how many missions there are and how hard is brutal mode.
So we're aiming for the same amount of missions as Heart of the Swarm or more. And Brutal, we haven't done balancing yet in the game, but we're aiming to make Brutal as difficult or harder as Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty.
I was just wondering, will there be any Easter eggs that refer to the future or past of StarCraft?
We have a lot of fun trying to put Easter eggs in. Usually at the beginning of the production, we're too busy trying to get everything done. So usually it comes in at the end. We'll try and have some fun elements on it, like Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm especially had old art we had from what became, the old Blizzard Dota we had that became Heroes of the Storm. So I think we had Arthas in some snow environment kind of hidden away somewhere. So they kind of come upon from more just inspiration or just spur of the moment fun things we want to do. As far as putting ones in that are Easter eggs to Brood War or something, we're certainly open to those ideas. We just haven't had time to think about them yet.
Why is this game not considered an expansion? Why is it a standalone game? How is it a standalone game?
Well, the development of this game's been for so long, right? We started off Wings of Liberty, then Heart of the Swarm came a couple years later. Now we're looking a year or so past Heart of the Swarm. At this point, we just didn't think it's fair for everybody else who wanted to get in and feel like, you know what, I kind of want to get into StarCraft, but it's kind of too late. I didn't really want to go back and play a game that's 7 years old. So this is just an opportunity to really just allow everybody else to come and share the content.
Hi guys, thanks for your time. I was just wondering, is Artanis going to be a playable character, and what kind of abilities do you have in mind for him?
Artanis will probably be a playable character in the game, but as always, this game's under development, anything can happen.
Hi, I was wondering if you guys are going to bring Phoenix back in any shape or form, whether like a mission going back into history or as like a character in like Allied Commanders.
We know that Phoenix is an absolute fan favorite, and he's an absolute James favorite as well. So there's a good chance Phoenix might make some sort of appearance in some way.
So, hi again. I was wondering, two questions, one small. Reavers, yes or no? And second of all, I see the Allied Co-Commander thing is, you know, it's new. Will that impact development? Will that, you know, mean that we'll see the campaign a lot more later than what we saw with, in between the time wait between Legacy, between Wings and Swarm? Will it be a lot longer between Swarm and Void? And that's about it.
We're looking at a lot of different units, especially from Brood War. Right now, we do have several units that you can see on the play floor right now. You can see the Dragoon. Reaver is a unit that we're actually playing with. We've been looking at some of our other ones like Arbiter, Corsair. We're looking at all these. The Scout. Whether which one stays or not, it's still left to be determined. There's still a lot of iterations, a lot of work we still have to do, but it's something that's very passionate for us to kind of bring some of those units back, especially with this story of going out and seeing all these old factions or this old technology, right? So the opportunity's there. And as far as the Allied Commanders, this is all part of the scope of our development. This is something that we've kind of told ourselves we want to do. This is something we've been working on. So as with everything, if something's going to get delayed, it's not individually one thing that's going to hold it back. It's a combination of a bunch of things. So at this point, it would not impact anything for the campaign.
First off, I want to say thank you so much for all your hard work. I love this game, and it's amazing to see it come to its conclusion. I have two questions. The first one is, with the Protoss featuring so many prominent characters, Tassadar, Artanis, Zeratul, how did you guys decide to go with Artanis as the big face of Legacy of the Void? And the second question was...
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Zeratul, we definitely initially considered maybe making Zeratul the hero of this game when we first started having talks. I mean, he's been a prominent figure for the last two parts of the trilogy. But at the end of the day, this is the Protoss story. And Artanis is the leader of the Protoss. You know, and Zeratul has been kind of a wanderer and a vagabond and an incredible mystic. And so we decided he was probably best served as an Obi-Wan or a mentor in this game. Where, going back to that earlier point I said, this was a game that was about the Protoss and Protoss civilization, and to us, Artanis' role in the Protoss society is to try and find a way to make this new civilization work, to be the leader of the Dalam. And so everything clicked into place, and he felt like he was definitely the right one.
Hey guys, I had a more technical question about the 1 versus AI game mode. And with that, like, have you guys thought about automated ways to look at replays to see what the custom styles are? Like, what's the newest harass, like, opportunity or whatever, like, play style people are using, and taking that and incorporating that in the AI, especially for like 1 versus AI or 2 versus AI, and using that to make it a more dynamic game. And if so, like, what did you guys find? Was it hard, like, or easy? Or not worth it?
We haven't really gotten down to the nitty-gritty on the AI at this point. Everybody who works on the StarCraft team, we're very aware of what the community wants. We read a lot of the forums, we look at all these tournaments, the stuff that you see right now. And so the play styles do change. You see different modes, you see different meta gameplays. So when we get to the point where we're talking to the engineer, the AI programmer, and he's looking at this stuff, we definitely look at that stuff. So we just haven't got to that point right now.
Good afternoon. I was just curious, since this is the first franchise that actually had Earth involved, our universe, I was wondering if the United Earth Directorate was going to make an appearance again.
You never know.
So I know that the third expansion is going to wrap up all of the storylines, but I was wondering, is there going to be a StarCraft III?
You know, I think that StarCraft is probably one of our the best franchises we have. I think we all love StarCraft, and people at Blizzard are incredibly passionate about this universe and the characters. So right now we're not working on a StarCraft III, but you know, StarCraft will go on in some way, some form. You know, we love it. We're passionate about it. So no promises, but know the passion's there at the company.
Hi. So we'll be seeing Orazaj or any of the characters from the Dark Templar trilogy in Legacy of the Void?
Hi, Max. We won't. And it was a conscious decision. I love those books. Christy is probably here in the audience. Christy? Hey, there she is. Christy Golden, ladies and gentlemen. Author of the Dark Templar trilogy. Those books are absolutely, I think, define the Protoss voice in many ways. And as I was setting out to write some of this, I reread them over and over. The decision was every time we tried to get them in, and every time we did, it felt forced. It felt like they didn't fit in this story. And that's not to say that they're not a valuable story thread that we should explore one day going forward, but they weren't right for Legacy of the Void.
All right, looks like we have time for one last quick question. Hey, first off, I want to say I think you guys did an awesome job with all the art assets in Legacy of the Void. I think it's the best looking stuff you guys have made for StarCraft II so far, by far. That said, I'm a modder, and you know, we love to take your assets and use them for our own creations. And I'm wondering, taking the dependencies from Legacy of the Void and then combining that with the dependencies from Heart of the Swarm and Wings of Liberty, if we're going to run into any technical issues, you know, with all of that data coming into, you know, one map instance.
So you hopefully shouldn't, but, you know, we'll continue to support the game after it comes out, and if there are issues, we'll definitely work to address any of these issues that may arise from all these data dependencies coming together. Yeah, I don't think anything more to add.
And also I was going to say on the mod side, we often will take assets we have for the campaign. Say there's like a big gate that opens up one way, we only need it that one way. We'll often go through and make sure it closes again, and we'll put a full set of animations in, or full effects for everything, so you guys will have more stuff to work with.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for attending StarCraft II Legacy of the Void campaign overview panel.